Returnal was one of 2021's best games, and Sony made the surprise announcement of Returnal DLC earlier in March. Well, today I'm going to be checking out Returnal Ascension, including all the reasons to jump back into the chilling alien adventure with Celine. Returnal ended up towards my top of the game of the year list in 2021, with Housemarque having a great year with their first big 3D shooter becoming a huge success, and then later in the year Sony acquired them to bring them into the PlayStation Studios family. Returnal remains one of the hardest games on the PS5, and if you've made your way through the game and the reason to come back time and time again may be limited unless you're trying to speedrun or challenge yourself or perhaps find all the lore secrets. Well, Returnal Ascension attempts to provide reasons for fans to come back to the game. In an update 3.0 we've got a couple of new game modes, plus new lore to find which is welcome after ending the main story campaign. So the first component of the update is the campaign's 2-player co-op mode. So Housemarque have done a great job, considering this was a tailored single-player experience before. The team have done a great job in terms of the technicalities and the UI for joining up with a friend, so it's easy to kick off and play with each other, and it's good fun playing through with a friend. Previous areas which may have given you trouble now are made a little easier with a friend, given they've got the ability to revive you. Warning though, the game's still definitely not a walk in the park, and you're going to need your wits about you more than ever. One drawback to the co-op mode that loot isn't shared, so you're going to have to politely agree amongst yourselves who picks up the loot, hopefully without arguing too much. So Housemarque took to the Sony blog to talk more about the co-op mode in Returnal Ascension. Trent Polak, lead game designer, spoke to the PlayStation blog, and here's what they had to say. When we talked about adding online co-op to Returnal at Housemarque, the biggest question was, how can we support co-op play in an experience that's intentionally surreal, isolating and finely balanced, to challenge a single player's ability to survive? It starts out just by setting the mood. How do we get another player into Returnal? Well, through Chronosis, of course. Players with the PlayStation Plus subscription interact with Chronosis, and then suddenly an Astra Scout enters their cycle, staring down and analysing Celine as she emerges. It all feels very surreal, uncomfortable, and makes it absolutely perfect for Returnal. Beyond that, we really built the multiplayer experience around the idea that players can get help to progress through the game. A hosting player invites another player to join their session to help them overcome their current challenge, and the host keeps his progress, whereas the joining player increases their scout rank, weapon traits and data bank. At first we had Chronosis in multiple places, each biomes, but we ultimately realised it was unintentionally resulting in players just engaging in co-op before major boss battles. Now, Chronosis are at the beginning of each biome, so players are encouraged to explore and see how the game plays out and evolves with a partner, and how divvying up resource scarcity is immediately a new dynamic. Of course, we wanted to preserve the challenge, the drama, the intensity that is Returnal, and some of our new co-op mechanics went through a lot of iteration to ensure those crucial elements of the game were maintained. So our most brutal examples are our initial approach to handling a downed player. So long as a player is standing, a downed player can be revived and brought back into the fray. Reviving a downed player is initially required for a living player to sacrifice some of their health to revive their teammate. Turns out this was really mean. 5 minutes into a cycle, both players would be down to a bare minimum of health and struck in a vicious cycle of one-hit kills. While playtesting day one, we realised that really reviving a downed player already had required a really valuable resource, and that was time. So reviving your teammate mid-combat, especially against an elite or a boss, where every millisecond mattered, is all it really takes to maintain difficulty while ensuring both players can stay active in the game at once. Another element of the game that we changed for the co-op experience is the house and the ship sections, which are experienced from Celine's first-person perspective. And we ended up removing these sections while playing the multiplayer, so you could keep the speed and intensity of the multiplayer sessions high throughout the experience. So another part of the update is called the Tower of Cepheus, and this is an endless mode where you get to experience new rooms and new weapons, and there's also a new first-person section too. So this new tower is accessible from the start of a new run. You could take Celine through this gauntlet, taking on ever more powerful enemies. It reminds me of the mode in Breath of the Wild DLC called the Trial of the Sword. There's also a new boss to face called Algos, and the boss fight gets pretty intense as you keep fighting them. So if you haven't played Returnal before, now is a great time to jump in, as the game is likely cheaper now than it was a year ago. If you haven't played Returnal since putting it down after completing it, or perhaps you put it down due to frustration, I'd recommend going back and checking out the update, so it's free after all and the perfect time to take another look at Returnal. Well, the game was developed by Housemarque, it was published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, is out on the PS5, and the DLC was released on the 22nd of March, 2022. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.